Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, Governor Eric Holcomb gives us the state of Indiana's economy. A small town is looking to preserve Ernie Pyle's legacy. We look at the biggest stories in this week's IBJ. An Indiana company may have found a game changer in identifying a certain kind of cancer. Ascension St. Vincent opens its new burn center. Sports tourism makes a comeback, and the nation's newest contemporary music festival is coming to Indy. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Indiana's economy weathered a challenging 2021. Despite supply chain issues, labor shortages, and the ongoing pandemic, the state saw growth in several key areas. In this extended interview, Governor Eric Holcomb joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to review 2021 and look ahead to 2022.
Governor, as always, welcome to the show.
Great to be back with you, Gary. And indeed, the state of the state is strong, and every economic indicator seems to be pointing in that direction. We've long since tried to balance our lives and our livelihoods, as you allude to, with a global pandemic all around us. But when you look at our GDP, when you look at our foreign direct investment, when you look at our revenue, when you look at our reserves, when you look at our single-family home building permits, sometimes we're twice the amount of single-family home building permits as our neighboring states, much bigger states. Housing hot. I was with realtors just yesterday statewide. They said they've never seen a better November, not a close second. When you look at our population growth, more than every state that we touch. So we're full steam ahead, damn the torpedoes, and looking forward to another strong ending this Q4 in terms of new job commits, wages, capital investment and projects.
Okay, I want to get to some specifics in a minute, but first, late in the week, some rising concerns about the hospitalizations related to COVID. I know IU Health concerned about COVID and non-COVID hospitalizations, asking for help from the Indiana National Guard. Your reaction to that, and do you anticipate as we get into 2022, things from a COVID standpoint maybe stymieing some of this progress you're talking about?
No, I think we have more tools now than we did at the beginning of the COVID-19 as it was unfolding, going back almost 2 years now. More tools, obviously, first and foremost, a vaccine and treatments, but a vaccine is what keeps you out of the hospital. We know that 95% of our hospitalizations are unvaccinated Hoosiers. So, you can either bet on the 5% that aren't getting vaccinated or the 95% that are and see who's ending up. Now, having said that, we've got all kinds of different teams, mobile teams, strike teams, the Department of Health, the Indiana National Guard, the women and men in uniform. We'll continue to deploy them, fan them out across the state where the need is. And that's the approach that we're taking. We've got 13 right now. We're stepping up another 7 to go out across the whole state of Indiana. Indiana is one of 6 states that comprises or makes up over 50% of all the nation's hospitalizations. And whenever I'm talking to or with my gubernatorial cohorts, we don't cheer when the surge isn't over us, because it's when it's going to come to us, not if it's not there already. And so we'll get through this, and we're going to have to continue to get through it together.
Okay, I want to talk about some specifics with the economy. You mentioned some numbers, but interesting to me as we look to the future, too. Some big economic development deals this year. Toyota with a massive investment in Princeton earlier in the year. The nation's largest solar plant, the Mammoth Solar project up in northwest Indiana, Pulaski and Stark counties, $1.5 billion. As you look at this alternative energy space, which is massive and seems to be gaining momentum, is this going to be a real focus, a new focus, if you will, for economic development in Indiana?
Well, this is a huge sector and potential for Indiana to really become a leader, not just in the game and winning, but really a leader. Obviously, in terms of energy sources, we have the ability in a state like Indiana for reliable, affordable, and clean energy. And so you see us going green and really capitalizing on, be it batteries, as you mentioned, and not just battery production, but battery capacity, battery recycling. This is going to be a huge part of the whole sector. And so we'll lean into hypersonics, microelectronics, quantum computing, machine learning, all the above in that innovation space to really stay a leader in advanced manufacturing and life sciences, two real bread and butter sectors for us.
Yeah, I know Toyota announced plans for that big electric vehicle battery plant, which is going, I think, to North Carolina. But no question about it, the other automakers, Toyota and all the automakers, going to be investing a lot of money in that. When you look at the assets here, Purdue, Notre Dame, Battery Innovation Center in southern Indiana, is Indiana uniquely positioned to take advantage of that?
Well, we're unique in a number of ways. We have low cost, high talent, perfect location. And that's why you saw with this latest $800 million capital investment in Toyota, that's just another huge mega investment in Toyota. There are a lot of states who would have loved to have the first one, the second one, or the third one down there at Toyota, not to mention all the other OEMs that we have spread out. So absolutely, we're uniquely positioned, and we're in conversations right now about a pretty exciting 2022.
Governor, last week I had new Secretary of Commerce Brad Chambers on the show, and he talked about innovation and entrepreneurship and how a lot of people are talking about that in Indiana, which is a positive. He'd like to see more action. In your view, what needs to happen to really ignite innovation here in the state of Indiana?
Well, how much time do you got, Gary? I mean, this is invest very early on in programs like Innovate Within, which is pretty darn exciting, and we're getting our world-class universities and 30 privates to all invest in scholarships for our up-and-coming leaders in this innovation and entrepreneur space. But also we're going global with this as well, and happy to share with you today, that we'll be hosting a global economic summit in next year in May 26th through the 29th, leading up to obviously the greatest spectacle in racing. But we'll be talking about the future of mobility. We'll be talking about the future of whether it's space, air, subsurface, ground mobility, autonomous, electric, all the above. We'll be talking about the future of quantum computing, machine learning. We'll be talking about the future of food security. We'll be talking about the future of energy, be it electric and other, hypersonics, microelectronics. So all this space, we seek to not just innovate and create, but then make and distribute all over the world. So that's why Brad, when he says he wants, the Secretary of Commerce, when he says he wants, he not only wants it, I not only want it, we need it. If we're going to continue to be an advanced manufacturing leader in not just the country, but the world, we've got to continue to make the investments. That's why we continue to invest.
The Global Summit will be a big story, no doubt, in the spring, to be sure. Regarding global economic development, jobs, attraction, investment, it's been a big focus of your administration, the last several administrations, really. Does Indiana, in your view, continue to play and will continue to play on that global stage when it comes to economic development, investment, jobs, be a real focus area?
Yeah, if you believe the numbers, our foreign direct investment, we tripled it in a 3-year period. Hard to do, but it's not just because of the attention. It's because of our location, our talent, and cost to do business. When you look at the number of companies, when you look at the number of new headquarters, both brand new headquarters that have moved to the state of Indiana and then new upstart companies that are headquartered in the state of Indiana, these are happening at a pace like we've just never seen before. And again, happening over the course of the last couple of years where everyone's faced a global pandemic. So I've been in 3 different countries, Qatar, Canada, and Israel, just since the race of last year. Been in New York, been in California, hustling to recruit more talent, more business to the state of Indiana. And once all those travel lanes open up all over the world again, like in Europe right now, we'll be right there on the ground bringing more back to Indiana as well.
Yeah, Governor, only have 30 seconds. I know that's not enough time, but looking ahead to 2022, give us a thumbnail, your feeling as we head into 2022 when it comes to the economy and economic development, what kind of year you expect next year?
We'll continue to grow, and we'll continue to play offense, not just defense. We'll continue to manage our way through the global pandemic. But as strong as this fourth quarter will be, and it will be a statement strong quarter, our first quarter, we've got 47 projects in the pipeline right now that we're tracking. So Katie barred the door, the best is yet to come, and our momentum just continues to speed up.
Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, as always, perspective on the Indiana economy, the state of the economy, and what might be ahead in 2022. Governor, as always, thanks for your time and look forward to seeing you soon.
Gary, best to you and yours and to all your viewers.
Ernie Pyle was a small-town boy from Vermilion County who made a big-time mark on how Americans learned about what was happening on the front lines during World War II. Pyle's hometown of Dana is now working to preserve his legacy. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has more.
Everyone just called him Ernie. The Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper columnist from nowhere, Indiana, made a name for himself by simply being unapologetically Hoosier, the voice of the common man that led to uncommon success.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
World War II, fierce combat, and Dana, Indiana's Ernie Pyle. Armed with only a pen, a Pyle column felt like a personal invitation to the front lines for folks back in the U.S.
He told the stories that the soldiers were not sending back often enough to tell their families about. He was the letter back home.
Thanks to all of you for talking here, and I hope the folks at home see you and see you're all right.
You cannot tell the story of World War II without Ernie Pyle. He had a gift for describing scenes, like a video camera in his mind, recorded everything, and then he played it back as he wrote. And people still today say, "Who is our Ernie Pyle?"
Pyle's fading image still shines down on his hometown of Dana, Indiana. A tiny once stoplight town that decidedly has more acres of farm than people. Ernie's people, like 100-year-old Clarabelle Adams-Mishler.
He was kind of a rough character. He was nothing like his parents because they were church-going people. His folks lived kind of across the field, way back over there from me, not too far. But I remembered him coming home and coming up to Dana with his dad.
And Dana is making sure its favorite son's contribution to history is never forgotten.
But never have I crossed the trail of any man as beloved as Captain Henry T. Wasco.
Bringing it to life through the Ernie Pyle World War II Museum.
The layout of the museum was based on Ernie Pyle's columns.
Is everything in here real?
Everything is exactly as it should be for the time, place, and period.
Even his gun?
Even the guns. My son and I shot that helmet ourselves. I had a German pistol with...
So something would a Nazi would have, or
yeah.
Oh gosh.
And I even had some surplus German ammunition. This is the beachhead on the day that Ernie Pyle walked along the beach that I mentioned to you before. It's called the long line of personal anguish, where he strolled along the beach and looked at everything that was left behind by the soldiers who'd passed.
And this was Normandy?
Yes. The hardest thing for us to find was cigarettes. On D-Day, before the invasion, they gave everybody a carton of cigarettes. And Ernie mentioned in the column that there were thousands of packs of cigarettes on the beach. So we had to find them, and it was tough to find the proper Lucky Strikes.
That's amazing.
That's the kind of detail we were looking for.
The kind of detail Ernie would appreciate.
President Truman himself announced Ernie Pyle's death on the radio. And he said, "No man has so well told the story of the American GI as the American GI wanted it told. The nation owes him a deep debt of gratitude."
Come in. Over.
And even Hollywood loved Ernie Pyle.
Try out of the memory of our anguish to reassemble our broken world into a pattern so firm and so fair that another great war can never again be possible. And for those...
An amazing, amazing man. You know, Ernie Pyle had an obvious impact on so many veterans and their families since World War II, including my own. In fact, I may not even be here if it weren't for Ernie Pyle. I found out during the story that he's a distant cousin of my mom's, and it just so happens he introduced my great-grandparents to each other at Indiana University in the 1920s. So very cool connection there. Gary?
Great story with a family connection indeed. Thanks, Mary Rachel.
Banks are experiencing high credit quality. Indiana businesses are preparing for potential changes in COVID-19 vaccination regulations. And what might the legacy project from the College Football Playoff National Championship look like in Indianapolis? IBJ Managing Editor Greg Weaver joined us with a look at these stories and more.
Let's start with an interesting story. Loan defaults in Indiana and nationwide at a historic low, and the credit quality actually improving. That seems surprising, but quite the case, right?
Right. So at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of financial analysts were anticipating that the default rate would increase, obviously. But what has happened is it's now at a historic low. It's at 0.19%. Nationally, and if you recall, during the Great Recession, it rose to historic highs of 3%. But what folks are saying is that the reason that it's gone down this time is that the economic downturn was short, and the federal relief to businesses and individuals made a huge difference.
Yeah. So a positive, little silver lining during the pandemic. Another interesting story that we'll see begin to take shape next week at the Indiana State House, a bill lawmakers will be taking up, and that pits religious freedoms against employer rights. Is it okay for companies to question the sincerity of their workers' beliefs? So kind of a hot button issue that'll be at the State House.
It is. A lot of employers, particularly hospitals, are requiring their employees to receive COVID-19 vaccinations. But there are a number of lawmakers who believe that these businesses should be forced to accept exemptions for religious and medical reasons. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be the debate as we head into a committee hearing on Thursday next week in the Indiana House.
Yeah, and my anticipation would be there would be some heated debate on both. Probably folks on both sides of that issue have very strong beliefs, right?
Yeah, very much so. And employers already have to make a number of accommodations for people's religious beliefs under the Civil Rights Act. But the Civil Rights Act does allow for employers to question those beliefs if they think they are not sincere. But under this legislation that the Indiana House is considering, they would be forced to accept those objections.
Yeah. Hey, one more story that is an interesting one. Each big event in Indianapolis, sports event, typically has a legacy component to it. The college football playoff national championship game in January. I know Dave Lindquist is going to take a look at what that legacy project might look like.
Yes, and so what happened was the Legacy Project has created an Indiana Learning Lab. It's an online lab, and it has proved to be particularly helpful during the pandemic because teachers need assistance in kind of learning how to teach online, and then now also helping students make the transition back into the classroom.
Great. Lots of great stories coming up in the IBJ. Plus, you can get statewide coverage from Inside Indiana Business in this week's and every week's IBJ as well. Greg Weaver, the managing editor at IBJ. Greg, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
A biotech company based in the Purdue Research Park says it has developed a potential game changer in identifying ovarian cancer. The FDA has approved the use of On-Target Laboratories' fluorescent imaging agent Cytolux to target cancer during surgery. We get details from founder Philip Lau.
We want to start with a big congratulations to you on FDA approval. You founded On-Target Laboratories in 2011. You've started 7 companies. This is your first FDA approval. How does it feel to reach this big milestone?
Oh, I've experienced a whole rainbow of emotions. Obviously, feelings of euphoria, relief, perhaps irrational exuberance at times, but mainly gratitude. I'm just grateful for having had the opportunity to do something that matters. And I'm also really thankful for the help that I've had, the assistance from grad students and postdocs in my lab, and the employees at On-Target Labs, the company, have put in many years of really tireless effort in moving this from the benchtop through preclinical and clinical development and finally into humans. So a lot of feelings of gratefulness, gratitude.
A team effort for sure. So let's talk about Cytolux. If you could explain what it is in layman's terms and just give us a quick introduction into how it works.
Sure. The vitamin folic acid is a vitamin that's absolutely required for cell division. And cancer cells, as everyone knows, want to divide very rapidly, and so they have an enormous appetite for folic acid. And all we've done is exploited this greed for folic acid, attaching the vitamin to a bright fluorescent light bulb. And when it's injected into a patient, that bright fluorescent light bulb circulates through the body, but only is captured or primarily by cancer cells. This allows the cancer cells to light up, so the surgeon, when he or she goes in and performs surgery, can see the cancer light up brightly against the dark background of healthy cells, and enables the surgeon then to remove and resect more malignant lesions than he or she would have otherwise been able to do so.
Yeah, whereas before it was just touch, really, in sight. So this is really a big improvement over the standard methods. In phase 3 study for Cytalux, additional cancer was detected in 27% of patients. So explain just the big picture significance of this for patients at the end of the day. It seems to me it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say Cytalux could be life-saving.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. I think for the most part, it'll give patients that go into surgery a lot more confidence that when they come out, the surgeon will have found and removed all or most of the malignant lesions that otherwise would have been missed without the aid of this surgeon's tool. So I think just the confidence and the comfort and the security knowing that this is really a very effective method for treating the disease and can, in fact, help them enormously, I think is really a great contribution and should, in fact, I think, significantly revolutionize the practice of surgery for years.
And we've alluded to the fact that you're quite the legend in Indiana. You founded and sold Endocyte for $2 billion. You've created 7 startups, including Emoja, which had the largest initial round of funding ever for a Purdue company, among the largest in the U.S. How does Cytalux forward your legacy?
Well, obviously, as you pointed out earlier, this is the first drug that I've had FDA approved. I hope it's just the first of many because we have quite a number in the pipeline. But in all fairness, I've learned a lot, gone through the school of hard knocks and learned from mistakes, and I hope not to make those mistakes again. We have a lot of drugs moving forward in areas from, rheumatoid arthritis, other cancers, CNS diseases like Alzheimer's, fibrotic diseases, and even infectious diseases like COVID-19. And I think the lessons we've learned in moving Cytalux forward will be very beneficial to developing these other drugs too.
And just a little bit of time left, Dr. Lau, but you've successfully launched startups. You say money is no longer a motivation for you, that it's really about helping people.
Yeah, that's right. For some reason, I don't know why, I think I've been blessed with ideas on how to cure or treat human diseases. And I think with that unearned God-given ability to see opportunities to help people comes an obligation. And so even though I probably should have retired many years ago, I don't intend to. I really think I can still do an awful lot of good. And I think some of these therapies that we're bringing forward and will be made available to people in the near future will do a lot of, will reduce morbidity and mortality worldwide. So I intend to complete that task.
All right. Well, Dr. Lau, we love covering good news like this. Congratulations again on your major milestone, and thanks for being on the show today.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Earlham College wants to reverse the trend in the number of Hoosiers pursuing opportunities in higher education. The Wayne County College will be adding new majors and concentrations for the coming year. President Ann Houtman joined us in our Eye on Education segment.
Before we get started, you've got a lot going on at Earlham, but a lot of colleges and universities, certainly these are challenging times. A year ago, a little over a year ago, I guess, you implemented some fairly dramatic budget cuts, reorganized, eliminated jobs, all in the interest of righting the financial ship. As you stand there today on the Richmond campus, what's the financial status and the state of Earlham College?
Well, we're in great shape. You probably know we have one of the largest endowments per student in the country. And that's partly because we have a very significant endowment, thanks in large part to Eli Lilly, and in part because our student bodies decreased because during COVID, our international student population declined. But I think we're in great shape. We're going to get out of this.
Okay. You made those cuts a year ago, and since that time, you've implemented some very significant programs. Among them, just launched a month ago or so, Inspire Earlham. And that's an initiative that is really targeting low and middle income students for higher education.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited about that. Hoosier families that make less than $60,000 a year are eligible for free tuition at Earlham College. So.
And that's a big move for a private institution to make a commitment like that.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. We're concerned since COVID, we've seen fewer low income and first generation students going to college. We want to help turn that around. Everyone, of course, in higher ed is worried about that, but we want to do our part.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in the introduction, but you're also partnering with Ivy Tech Community College in a big initiative, and again, rather unique for a smaller private institution, but a significant partnership with Ivy Tech.
Yeah, that's right. It is, you're exactly right, that large state schools like IU or Ball State do this kind of thing regularly, right. But the small privates, especially nationally ranked liberal arts colleges, don't often do it. We think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and I know you were talking off camera, we were talking off camera, and you talked about your interest in making Earlham really connected to Indiana, or really impacting the state of Indiana in a big way. I assume this Ivy Tech program is part of that. But to talk about that bigger mission in your view, and that responsibility to Indiana.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, Earlham College is one of the oldest businesses in the state of Indiana. Since 1847, we've been rolling all the way through. And so I feel we have a strong obligation to Hoosier families and to Hoosier businesses to continue to produce the next generation of well-educated workers for the state.
Hey, talk about, because I know on the athletic side, that's an important part of the overall student experience at any school, really. But you're getting tennis back, right? That went away, but there's some moves have been made, and it looks like tennis programs are headed back.
Yes, very excited about tennis. We brought golf back as well. And then just between us and whoever's listening, of course, we just were given philanthropic funding to start softball, which we're so excited about, both because our baseball team is so strong, and also because it's another way to bring women athletes to Earlham College. So very, very excited about that.
Well, to put it mildly, a lot going on at Earlham College, both programmatically and also on the athletic fields and partnership-wise as well. Earlham College President Ann Houtman, I really appreciate you taking the time and look forward to having you on the show again.
I look forward to it, Mr. Dick. Thank you.
Okay.
After a rough 2020, Indianapolis sports tourism enjoyed a comeback this year. What's the game plan from here? Indiana Sports Corp President Ryan Vaughn shared details with Bill Benner on Inside Indiana Sports.
What a year 2021 was. And again, I misspoke. It was actually early January when the NCAA made this announcement to bring all of March Madness. But you had the Big Ten Men's and Women's, Horizon League, and so many other events. But what a year.
Yeah, it was an incredible year. Not the year we expected or planned, but thanks to the trust the NCAA has had in this community, we were fortunate enough to be able to host the entire tournament, the one and likely only time it'll ever happen, and it was right when the city needed it most.
Well, and speaking of what it needed, it was a $46.5 million economic impact boost at a time, again, coming out of the pandemic. And that was conducted, you announced that this week, conducted by an independent. But again, if it had only been the Final Four, it would still have been a significant event. But having all of it certainly contributed largely to that number.
Yeah, the number is fantastic. $46.5 million, $41 million directly spent on hospitality. So whether it's hotels, restaurants, entertainment. But the stories behind the numbers, I think, were most important, especially last year, just getting people back to work. There were points in times where hotels were down to 2 and 3 employees and restaurants were shuttered or working on reduced hours. And this was a moment in time for our city to kind of wake back up, come back to work, and really reinvigorate our downtown.
And typical of the Sports Corp, typical of the overall Indianapolis Sports Initiative, it wasn't just basketball. I mean, we had art acts going on. It was music. Downtown was alive for 3 weeks.
Yeah, the games are the games, and we're fortunate again that the NCAA brings the event here. But what really makes it special, I think, are what happens outside of the arena. And so to activate Swish, based on a very generous gift by the Lilly Endowment, to put literally hundreds of artists back to work over 3.5 weeks, who many of which had not had a chance to work in more than a year, did a couple things. Gave them an opportunity to work, but also really brought some life back downtown. Everywhere you went, you saw live music and art performances, and made people feel good about our city.
Moving on from the Final Four, you almost immediately hosted Olympic diving trials, and then just last week, a fantastic event with the Big Ten football championship. Iowa, Michigan, by everybody's estimation, downtown was slammed.
Yeah, it was an incredible weekend. Sold out every ticket we had available. Demand was through the roof, and again, the ancillary events were back in full effect. So Georgia Street was packed. Joey Jaws had his title defense of his shrimp eating contest. Fan Fest inside the convention center was full. We don't have the final numbers yet, but it'll be a tremendous economic impact, and it was great to welcome the Big Ten back and really do it as we have done it historically before.
And as we look back at 2021, we immediately look forward to 2022. Got college football championship game January 10th. More March Madness, first and second rounds. Big Ten men's and women's tournament. Horizon League. And then an announcement, the Big Ten football championship officially confirmed that it will return in 2022 for the 12th year.
Yeah, the first quarter will be incredibly busy. Looking forward to the College Football National Championship in January. And then in March, we have pretty much as much basketball ahead of us as we have behind us at this point. And then very pleased that the news broke on the extension of the Big Ten football contract for yet another year in 2022. So looking forward to another exciting weekend next December.
Ryan, and again, as we wrap up, there's a bid in for the Olympic swim trials in 2024. We also know that we'll have the NBA All-Star game, and then Final Four is back in 2026. So the hits just keep on coming.
It's my favorite question in this community after every big event. What's next?
What's next?
Yeah, so we keep one foot in the present and try and execute as best as we can, and one foot in the future, trying to look how do we improve and bring more new and exciting events to Indy.
Well, Ron, president of the Indiana Sports Corp, we appreciate you having on, and we look ahead again to a great year as we look back to a great year.
And finally this week, Indianapolis is preparing to host the nation's newest contemporary music festival. Wonder Road will feature 3 stages at Garfield Park on the city's south side in June. The Elevation Group president Denny Young came on the show with details.
You're based in Cleveland. That's where you are right now. Tell me about Wonder Road, this 2-day music festival. Again, Garfield Park here, south side of Indianapolis. Tell me what the event is all about.
Well, I'm really proud to and pleased to let you know that we've partnered with MOKB Presents, a local Indianapolis concert promotion company, to stage a multi-day, multi-stage, multi-act music festival right in Indianapolis at Garfield Park. There'll be 3 stages, 28 acts. We'll have great food, activities for people of all ages. Be a phenomenal way to kick off the summer in Indianapolis.
Yeah, based on what you just said, 28 acts. This is going to be a big deal, a big event on the Indianapolis South Side. What can folks expect?
I think you can expect major artists. We've got Vampire Weekend, Lord Huron, Bastille, who's coming in from the UK, Churches from Scotland, Milky Chance from Germany, Noga Erez from Israel. They have a real international flavor, contemporary music. We're going to expect, 15 to 20,000 people throughout the weekend to descend on Garfield Park for the event. And it's going to be like what people would expect a big music festival to be.
Hey, why Indianapolis, Denny, and specifically Garfield Park, that venue?
Great question. Dan Kemmer, who's a partner at MOKB Presents and has been in Indianapolis since 2008, is originally from Cleveland. Dan and I started working together back in the early 90s promoting shows. Dan moved on to Indy. I stayed in Cleveland. We have built out tremendously successful music festivals in Ohio. We wanted to go beyond the Ohio borders. Dan and his partner, Josh Baker, were perfect partners for us in Indianapolis. And we felt that Indy was the best next market for us.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because there's been a lot of effort here to really focus on the arts and cultural community here, the music community, to make Indianapolis more of a music city, if you will. And it would seem that this event would be right in that sweet spot.
There's no question. Since Dan arrived and with Josh together, they have built an incredible live music ecosystem in Indianapolis, starting from a 100-cap club all the way up to Ruoff Music Center, 25,000 people. And together, they've invested time, they've invested money, they're tirelessly working in and around the city of Indianapolis to develop live music. And Mayor Hogsett is an amazing enthusiast for music and events. As you know, Indianapolis is probably the top destination for major events in this country.
Yeah.
The Big Ten Championship, the NCAAs, all kinds of great Indianapolis 500. But there's not a music festival. And between Josh and Dan, myself, we just thought that Indianapolis was ready and they would be a great market for a large-scale music event.
A big event indeed. Wonder Road, June 11 and 12 at Garfield Park here in Indianapolis. Denny Young, the president at the Elevation Group. Really appreciate you taking the time, and we're looking forward to the event this summer.
It's going to be great for Indianapolis. It's going to be great for the community around Garfield Park. Indy Parks are the beneficiary of a $25,000 grant that we are giving them as a part of our arrival into Indianapolis. And I think everybody's going to be in for a treat.
All right, Denny. Thanks again. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.